Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos.
The main character, after dying in his previous life, he wakes up inside of Harry Potter, inside of Hogwarts, and he is a serpent. What is he gonna do inside of Hogwarts?
Wit also overheard Draco complaining that the brooms looked older than his own elf, Dobby. Madam Hooch didn't care what the students thought. Hogwarts didn't value flying lessons much, and even the brooms used for Quidditch were old models, let alone the brooms used for students to practice with. It's good enough to have it. Extend your right hand and place it above the broom, Mrs. Hodge demonstrated. Then shout, "Get up." Vitter instantly cut James' card. After the Serpent demon left the battlefield, his magical power plummeted, and in turn, his physical senses were affected. Keen, agile, and with maximum dynamic vision. Wit could even accurately count how many leaves were blown by the wind on the ground. Stand up. The broom eagerly jumped into Wit's hand. The flying broom is engraved with a magic spell. It will automatically levitate and obey your commands. Although it looks heavy, you don't actually need to exert any force. It can even give you leverage by resting your arm on a tree branch. Otherwise, Harry's small frame wouldn't be able to lift such a heavy broom. In addition, the broom has ample protective mechanisms. Those who are weak-willed, have unclear thinking, or are even timid cannot summon the flying broom. The most typical example is drunk driving. While flying broomsticks are unlikely to hit people, the survival rate in a drunk driving accident is extremely low. Therefore, all necessary protective measures should be taken. Neville was so scared that he wouldn't move his broom, and Hermione was so doubtful that she couldn't even ride it that she wouldn't get up. Fortunately, Mrs. Hodge was an experienced teacher, and with her guidance, the two successfully roused the broom. Next comes the correct straddle posture and grip position. If you're just flying around casually, the posture doesn't really matter, but if you want to participate in a Quidditch match, the correct posture becomes extremely important. Draco did a terrible job in this regard. He played with brooms from a young age, but did not receive proper guidance, which led him to develop many bad habits. It took Mrs. Hooch several times to correct him. Moreover, the movements were quite awkward. Page 23. He learned faster than someone like Harry, who had never even touched a broom before. Chapter 26. The Contest with Harry. After confirming that all students' postures were correct, Mrs. Hodge blew her whistle. Now, listen to my command. When I blow the whistle, you will push off the ground and take off. Keep your body slightly forward during the ascent, stop after about 3 feet, and control the broom to fall vertically back to the ground. 3, 2, 1. Take off. With a whoosh, just as Mrs. Hotcheye's whistle touched her lips, Neville was lifted vertically into the air like a deflated champagne cork. The speed was incredibly fast. Before Mrs. Hodge could react, Neville had already risen to 20 feet. Neville's face turned deathly pale as he rose rapidly. His body began to tremble uncontrollably, and his palms sweated. He lost his grip and slid right off the broom. Everything happened so fast that Mrs. Hooch instinctively cried out, but it was too late. Neville fell off his broom, which was still rising and swirling haphazardly into the forbidden forest. It's time. Wit's broom rose rapidly like lightning, and just as Neville was about to fall, he grabbed his clothes with his hand. With a forceful lift of one hand, he turns and whips his tail, catching Neville with the back half of the broom. It flew down with ease. Their movements were so graceful, it was like a juggling act. Well done, Slytherin, 2 points, Mrs. Hooch's tense voice gradually relaxed. Wit wanted to finish with a stylish landing, but Neville's hands were gripping him tightly, preventing him from making any complicated movements. Helpless, she could only turn around and complain. I said, "Can you please stop grabbing me? It's all red, and it hurts." Neville snapped out of his daze, quickly letting go of the broom, but lost his balance and fell off. Fortunately, the broom was less than a foot off the ground at that moment. Although the fall was quite awkward, at least no one was injured. Neville stood up, his face flushed, looking timid and weak like a punching bag. The expected mockery did not come. Instead, everyone in the class was completely captivated by Victor's heroic and dashing rescue. Nobody cared about Nawe's situation. "Well done," Seamus was the first to applaud. As Wit's friend, he had been holding back his anger these past few days because of what happened between Wit and Draco. Simo clapped his hands and gave Ron a provocative wink. "See, I knew Victor wouldn't turn bad. Now what do you have to say?" Ron turned his head away guiltily, not daring to reply. Lady Hooch also rushed over to check on Neville's condition. After confirming that he was not injured, she began to harshly criticize Neville's mistakes. "Mrs. Hodge only let him go when Neville's head was almost buried in the ground. Your memory ball." Wit handed the memory orb he had caught while rescuing Neville back to him and said softly, "Be more careful next time. It's not always possible for someone to save you. By the way, you have a really strong grip." Neville's face turned even redder, like a monkey's bottom, and he said in a very embarrassed whisper, "Thank you." "You're welcome." Wit waved and rode his broom back to his previous spot. "You shouldn't have gone to save that big oaf," Draco said to Wit, somewhat annoyed. "His family isn't on our side." "I know." Wit didn't want to correct Draco's thinking and casually replied, "I just think that, in the absence of a fundamental conflict of interest, it's always better to have more friends than more enemies." Draco didn't like Wit's answer, but he couldn't find a rebuttal, so he simply skipped the question. "You've really never touched a broom before?" "Never." Wit's lightning-fast movements and effortless skill were truly unlike something someone who had never touched a broom before could do. "Perhaps it's talent," Wit said with a sarcastic compliment. "But I'm definitely not as good as you, after all. I'm not confident I can dodge an attack from a Muggle helicopter." Draco enjoyed the compliments and was completely oblivious to the oddity in Wit's words. He raised his head as if it were his due and said, "Of course, my flying skills are absolutely top-notch. The brooms at Hogwarts are of such poor quality that they severely limit my skill level. Maybe I should ask my dad to buy me the latest Nimbus 2000 model." While Draco was boasting, Madame Hooch used a summoning spell to conjure a new broom and handed it to Neville. Flight lessons proceeded as scheduled. Without Draco's provocation, Harry naturally wouldn't make any more dangerous diving tackles to steal the ball. He did whatever the teacher told him to do. They flew in a very conventional manner, without any opportunity to showcase themselves. Wit thought to himself, if only Harry would miss this opportunity and not be able to participate in Quidditch. With the 150 Quidditch points gone, Slytherin has a much higher chance of winning the House Cup. Even if Dumbledore is biased, he still needs to find a suitable reason to give points. Unconditional favoritism is not necessarily a good thing for Harry's growth. However, Wit glanced at Harry flying in the sky from his broom and thought the chances of kicking Harry out of Quidditch were slim. He'd better save up some money and buy a Nimbus for 2,000. McGonagall needed a seeker, and Harry happened to have that talent, plus Dumbledore had been secretly observing Harry. Even without Neville's accident, Dumbledore would still have found a way to arrange for Harry to, coincidentally, join the Quidditch team. We must take precautions in advance. With that thought in mind, Wit urged his broom to fly into the air and catch up with Harry. You flew well. Interested in a race. Both Victor and Harry were taking their first flight lesson and had no prior experience. The difference between them now would be a pure difference in talent. Wit needs to confirm whether James can reliably beat Harry based solely on talent. If that doesn't work, he might need to allocate some philosopher's stone powder to James to accelerate James' growth. Giving James philosopher's stone powder was such a waste. Even blue treasure chests are hard to get, especially in the early stages when resources are scarce, so you have to be very careful with your resources. How do we compare them? The dashing action of Wit saving Neville had been lingering in Harry's mind. As Harry's control of the flying broom became smoother, his confidence grew, and Harry himself was starting to want to compete with Wit. Harry was just too embarrassed to approach Witeby. Now that Wit has come to him himself, how could he possibly refuse? See those 2 trees, Wit said, pointing to the oak trees not far away. Swoop over, circle around them, and pick 3 palm-sized, intact leaves. Damaged leaves don't count. You have to pick them again. Whoever returns first wins. Harry compared the distance and canopy size of the 2 trees on the left and right, confirmed that they were about the same, and nodded. Shall we compete now? I'll have to ask Mrs. Hooch for permission, Wit said with a shrug. A competition needs a referee. It would be even better if I could also get some college points. In order to achieve this year's gold achievement, Wit didn't want to miss any opportunity to earn academy points. Chapter 27. Your boss is someone else's subordinate. Wit is going to have a match with Harry. At 11 years old, everyone loves to join in the fun, and when they heard that Wit was going to have a match with Harry, everyone crowded around. Wit, teach Poot a lesson, Draco cheered excitedly, eager to see Harry's frustrated expression after his failure. Meanwhile, in Gryffindor, Ron was also trying his best to cheer Harry on. But Seamus didn't think highly of Harry. The winner will definitely be Wit, Seamus said confidently, tilting his head back. You saw it all, how fast Wit moved and how well he flew when he saved Neville. His expression was as if he were the one who had just saved the person. How can you cheer for a Slytherin? Ron widened his eyes, trying to put pressure on Seamus from the house's perspective. Wit is different. He's a good Slytherin. Seamus pulled Neville aside to get his support. Don't you think so, Neville? Neville hesitated for a moment, then nodded firmly. Even so. Despite being persuaded, Ron remained steadfast in his support for Harry. I still believe Harry will win. Good luck, Harry. Sitting on the broom, Wit noticed that Harry was frequently wiping his sweaty hands on his clothes, gripping the broom very tightly, and occasionally glancing at the expressions of the others below. You seem very nervous. Wit took a handful of Bertie Bott's every flavor beans out of his pocket and handed them over, saying calmly, Want some snacks to distract yourself? I don't want to beat a Harry who makes a mistake. Page 24. In the preliminary test, the better Harry performed, the more comprehensive the data Victor would obtain. In an official match, Wit would be desperate for Harry to make a mistake. Harry was unaware of Victor's thoughts, but his affection for Victor increased dramatically as he saw the snacks Victor offered him. Not all Slytherins are bad guys. Harry stuffed the beans in his hand into his mouth, and after chewing a couple of times, his face instantly contorted in pain. Tooey, tooey, tooey. It smells like boogers. Although he failed to replenish his sugar levels, Harry's tension was greatly relieved. Ready, Mrs. Hooch shouted from the ground. Start. As soon as he finished speaking, Wit and Harry took off at the same time, their flight speeds being roughly equal. But both of them were using the same model of broom, so it was normal that they couldn't make a difference in straight-line flight. The real challenge lay in flying around trees and collecting leaves. If you fly too far, you won't be able to reach the leaves. If you fly too close, you might get slapped in the face by a branch. Especially when moving at high speed, the branches hitting you feel much stronger than the bamboo shoots and pork stir-fry you had as a child. Wit flew halfway around the tree before finally plucking a leaf, which was still broken. Harry is similar. Neither of them chose to slow down their flight. While it would have been easier to pick the leaves by slowing down, there was no reason to be happy even if they won in this way. Maintaining high speed, Victor circled the tree 7 times before successfully picking 3 intact leaves. At this point, he felt a little dizzy and had to slow down to alleviate his physical condition. Harry's situation was even worse. Wearing glasses, he was flying at high speed and his vision was shaking, making him even more dizzy than Wit. He didn't even have time to slow down before he crashed headfirst into the ground. Wit quickly drew his wand, ready to make the rescue. But Harry didn't need his rescue. The rapid fall sent Harry's adrenaline soaring, instantly clearing his dazed mind, and he steered his broom to a low, ground-hugging stop. Although the person was unharmed, the leaves in their hand were all shattered into pieces. "Are you all right, Harry?" Wit flew down and asked with concern. "I'm fine." Harry held out his hand, his palm covered in broken leaves and debris. "You have won this contest." "I only benefited from wearing glasses," Wit said, shaking his head. "High-speed circling generates centrifugal force, and you'll obviously be at a disadvantage wearing glasses. Let's call it a draw. The test results are in. The outcome is not important to Wit. He might as well curry favor with Harry. James is indeed more talented than Harry in Quidditch, but the outcome depends on the actual situation of the game, and a sure win is not guaranteed. Wit decided to give James a good talking to when he got back. You only train when Cho Chang calls you, and you just sit there when Cho Chang doesn't call you. How can this be allowed? Do you live up to Qiu Zhang's expectations of you? Extra training. Give me a really intense extra training session. We still need to feed him Philosopher's Stone powder, but we should save as much as possible. We can't let James develop the habit of lying around complaining of hunger. He needs to work hard and earn gold coins. A beautiful match, excellent character, Mrs. Hooch ran over and announced happily, Gryffindor and Slytherin add 1 point each. You two will definitely become very good Quidditch players. After praising the two, Mrs. Fogg put away the broom and announced the end of Get Out of Class. Above Hogwarts Castle, Dumbledore stood at the window watching Harry and Wit's contest below, and some thoughts began to form in his mind. Harry is now severely lacking in self-confidence. The fame of the Saviour has not made him arrogant. On the contrary, it has made him more cautious. This is a good sign, but it is not a good Saviour. Confidence is essential. A qualified Saviour cannot lack confidence. Dumbledore needs to cultivate Harry's confidence. The best way to build self-confidence is to praise him for his strengths and talents, even certain privileges. Harry needs to feel that he is loved not because of some vague reputation, but because of his real abilities. Quidditch is a breakthrough point. The only problem was Victor. Dumbledore sadly took out a sizzling honey candy and popped it into his mouth. This child seems to be a little too versatile. He can learn spells in no time, understand transformations instantly, is exceptionally gifted with potions, diligent and unassuming with herbs, and has an innate affinity for magical creatures. With his stats already far exceeding expectations, he is truly exceptional. He's also surprisingly good at Quidditch. With such a wall blocking his way, how can he build Harry's confidence? Isn't this making things difficult for him? Dumbledore sighed. If necessary, talk to Snape and put some pressure on Wit. He should understand. Slytherin's Quidditch team has no shortage of seekers, unlike Gryffindor, which is short of players and therefore needs Harry to fill the gap. One team begs you to go, while the other fights for it themselves and has to oust the current team members. The difficulty levels are on completely different levels. Wit probably won't discover what he did. Dumbledore thought uncertainly to himself. Dumbledore, who was secretly glancing at Wit, had no idea that a pair of snake eyes were watching him from below. Dumbledore really is secretly observing Harry. Even though he already knew, Wit still confirmed with the Serpent Demon. "I am certain, Master," the Serpent Demon replied affirmatively once again. "Oh no, that biased old bee will definitely make Harry join the Quidditch team, since that's what Harry does best right now. A savior can't really be like an ordinary person, can he? Should I tell Professor Snape?" No, Professor Snape is also one of Dumbledore's men. Wit covered his head in despair. His own dean was someone else's subordinate, and there was little chance of him getting help. In fact, he might even be a hindrance. This is so hard for me. Chapter 20, 8 Snape's Malice. After the flight lesson ended, Wit, who had switched back to the Serpent Demon card, removed his contact lenses. Although the chances of being discovered are slim, details determine success or failure, and Wit will not make such a basic mistake. Serpent Demon, go and call that James guy over here. Even at dinner time, the students' excitement hadn't subsided, and they were all talking about their feelings about their first flight. At this point, Neville became the target of their teasing. The main reason is that most students don't fly very well, so they need someone who performs poorly as a comparison to show off their own level. The Great Hall was so noisy that Neville could no longer eat after only finishing half of his meal. He left alone. The first week at Hogwarts wasn't all that great. Fortunately, children tend to forget things easily, and the joy of the weekend is enough to wash away all their worries. On Saturday morning, the Slytherin common room was packed with people. Wit couldn't even find a seat. Everyone was discussing where to go later and had already formed teams. Even Draco, unusually, didn't sleep in today. He came over with Goyle and Crabbe, inviting Wit to join their Harry Potter sniping activity. "I'm sorry," Wit politely declined. "I have to attend Professor Snape's club event, and I don't have time today." "I'm starting to regret writing that letter for you," Draco complained. "That dear is completely unruly, and now even you're swamped with work." As he spoke, Draco stared intently at Wit's right arm, knowing that was where the snake most often lingered. His thoughts were practically written all over his face. Considering that Malfoy would need to help with many things later, Wit couldn't refuse Draco every time. "Okay, I'll lend him to you. But you really have to be careful," Wit cautioned worriedly. "If you anger him, he really will bite." "Don't worry." Draco's face immediately lit up with a smile when he heard that Wit was willing to lend him the Serpent Demon. "Gore will take good care of him, I promise." "Gore. You want to play with snakes, but you want me to take care of them. Is this appropriate?" "Actually, I—" Before Goyle could finish speaking, Draco interrupted him. "Crabbe, you also think Goyle is a good fit, right?" "Better to sacrifice a friend than myself." Crabbe naturally agreed wholeheartedly with Draco's question. "I believe in Gore. He will definitely take good care of Mr. Snake." 2-1, the rebuttal failed. The Serpent Demon was placed on Gore's body. The cool, slippery touch made Gore's skin crawl all over. He wanted to scratch, but dared not move. His whole face was contorted into a crying expression. Page 25. Draco wasn't entirely heartless, he promised. I can share half of the snacks that came from home today with you. As the only son of the Malfoy family, Narcissa and Lucius doted on Draco quite a bit, especially Narcissa, who would send Draco some of his favorite snacks every day. Yes, every single day. There are all kinds. Draco certainly couldn't finish it all by himself, so the rest was divided between Goyle and Crabbe. That's why these two listen to Draco so much, since Draco actually pays them a salary. Hearing that Draco was willing to share half of the snacks, Goyle suddenly felt less upset. Watching Draco leave triumphantly, Wit shook his head and continued reading Slughorn's potions notes. Since it was his first time participating in a club activity, Wit couldn't act like a complete novice who knew nothing, as that would be detrimental to his future plans. The other side. Once out of Wit's sight, the serpent demon's gentle gaze instantly turned icy. Hissed Tilda to confuse the audience. Draco's eyes instantly became dazed. Harry Potter wants to join Quidditch through the back door. Harry Potter wants to join Quidditch through the back door. As he read, Draco suddenly became excited. Harry Potter is going to get into Quidditch through the back door. I knew it. I knew that guy was up to something. Draco felt he had Harry caught red-handed and then excitedly went around telling everyone about it. The serpent demon remained hidden within Goyle's wizard robes, motionless. Since his master is so worried about Harry joining Quidditch, he must help his master share the burden. There are some things that Wit finds difficult to say, but Draco has no such worries at all. Draco spreading rumors about Harry, is that spreading rumors? That's just completing his daily tasks. When this was said, everyone initially took it as a joke. But if Harry ever actually joins Quidditch, those who took this as a joke will realize they're the joke now. They'll suspect something's fishy going on, something very fishy going on. After all, Hogwarts has never had a first-year student serve as an official Quidditch player in nearly a century. Harry must have gotten in through connections. Professor McGonagall, don't you agree? The serpent demon believed that McGonagall would certainly think of this, and that these rumors would force her to seriously consider Harry joining the Quidditch team. While it may not completely prevent Harry from entering Quidditch, it will certainly increase resistance significantly. The serpent demon had no interest in dealing with a child, but he was not only interested in helping his master, but also very motivated. Draco was equally dedicated to dealing with Harry. He was so dedicated that he even forgot about the serpent demon on Gore, saving the serpent demon a lot of trouble. Snape's Potions Club. Wit had no idea that Draco was running around for him, as news takes time to spread. He is now facing difficulties from Snape. There aren't enough seats. 5 people came today, but there are only 4 chairs, which means one person is destined to stand to listen to the lecture. Who could be that person? Of course, it's Victor, who just started school in the first year. There is no first come, first served rule in Slytherin. The last person to arrive went straight to Wit and coldly said to him, "Get up." Wit turned his head and glanced at Snape, whose expression remained unchanged, seemingly unconcerned about what was happening here. Now Victor either gets up and is laughed at, or he gets into a fight with the 6th grade student. 2 peaches kill 3 warriors, simple yet effective. Of course, Wit wouldn't get up. If he backs down, he won't be able to stay in this potions club in the future. Snape disliked him, but couldn't refuse Lucius, so he came up with this plan to get rid of him. That's why Wit just wouldn't leave. This senior doesn't seem to know what happened on the day of enrollment. Wit calmly raised his head, his gaze meeting that of the 6th-year student. Do you need me to tell you? Although he was talking to the 6th grade student, Wit's gaze turned back to Snape. Something was wrong. Snape realized something was amiss. The sixth-grade student next to Victor was not one to be easily intimidated. How could he possibly remain motionless when Victor ignored him like that? This is petrification spell. When? Spellcasting without a wand. No, how could a first-year student possibly cast spells without a wand? Snape couldn't understand how Wit did it, but he could clearly read the provocation in Wit's words. This made him very uncomfortable. Chapter 29, Snape's Potions Lesson. Sit down. Snape summoned a new stool and removed the petrification curse from the sixth-year student, openly showing favoritism in front of Wit. After doing all this, Snape even glanced at Wit, hoping to get an angry and annoyed look from him. As a result, Wit not only remained calm, but also gave him a serene smile. It's as if to say, "That's it. That brat is really annoying." Snape's expression darkened, and he resolved to ignore Wit. You can't drive them away, and you can't refuse them. With Lucius and Slughorn's letters of recommendation combined, Snape simply couldn't refuse. Lucius was one of his few friends, and Slughorn had taken good care of him back then, so even if Snape felt uncomfortable, he could only swallow it down. Although he was very annoyed, Snape had to admit that this freshman named Wit was really resourceful and much better than most Slytherin students. If he can really keep up with the lessons, then the cow issue can be overlooked. Note: Snape's decision to let the matter drop was based on the premise that Wit was a Slytherin, one of his own. If Wit had been in any other house, Snape would have held this grudge for life. Today's lesson is about compound decoctions. Polyjuice Potion is an extremely complex and cumbersome powerful potion. Its effects are strong enough to fool almost all detection spells and items. Only certain restoration spells or potions can render Polyjuice Potion ineffective. As long as you act convincingly enough, no one will notice. These kinds of potions have a wide range of uses and never have to worry about selling in the magical world. Moreover, compound decoctions have a great advantage. They are magic potions with fixed steps. As long as you follow the steps without making mistakes, you can successfully brew them. However, the specific duration of the effect can vary depending on the quality of the medicine, ranging from 10 minutes to 12 hours. Their values are naturally worlds apart. Compound decoctions with a transformation time of less than half an hour can only be sold at a loss, while compound decoctions with a transformation time of more than 10 hours can earn 12 times the profit. Therefore, how to brew better compound decoctions has always been a closely guarded secret among some people in the magical world. Snape never talked about these details in class, only teaching the most basic cooking method. Only those within the club can truly learn the essence from him. Snape set up the crucible and personally demonstrated the technique of preparing the compound decoction to everyone. Place 3 portions of sap grass, which must be harvested during the full moon, into the crucible, then add 2 bundles of 2-ear grass. Pay attention to the shape of the bundles. A specific shape allows the magic to be released more effectively. Stir clockwise 3 times, being careful with the speed, then stir counterclockwise half a turn. Because he was demonstrating and explaining at the same time, Snape spoke very slowly, trying to make sure everyone could see it clearly. Professor. While everyone was listening attentively, Wit suddenly raised his hand and said, "After turning half a circle counterclockwise, we can actually add another 1/10 of a circle. This will allow the compound decoction to maintain its medicinal properties for an additional 5 minutes." The sudden interruption enraged Snape, who turned around and rebuked him sharply. "What makes you think you can show off your knowledge in front of a potions professor?" He knew what Wit was talking about, but if the potion was turned counterclockwise more than half a turn, there was a very high chance it would break down. Inexperienced people are prone to making mistakes. Snape would never allow anyone to spread such erroneous knowledge in front of him. This isn't my opinion. Whit took out Slughorn's notebook, showing it off almost ostentatiously, before saying, "This is a discovery Professor Slughorn made recently while brewing compound decoctions. Although this step has a chance of causing the potion to collapse, if successful, it can reliably increase the potion's duration by 5 minutes. In the early stages of compound decoction preparation, when the loss from the decoction collapsing is minimal, it is entirely possible to take a gamble. Of course, Professor Snape, your method is perfectly fine. It is very safe and stable." Page 26. After saying that, Whit put away Slughorn's notebook, obediently stepped back, and appeared willing to accept the punishment. Whit wasn't interrupting Snape's lecture for no reason. He deliberately brought up Slughorn's name to inform the others at the Potions Club, especially the one who had just caused him trouble. He also has powerful connections, and they are very close. They were so close that they even lent him these private notes. Slytherin profit above all else. Whit believed that the minor conflict would be completely forgotten by everyone after he showed Slughorn's notes. It also gives Snape a good thrashing, reminding him of his earlier antics of using the 2 peaches kill 3 warriors trick to annoy me. After Whit produced Slughorn's notebook, Snape's subsequent humiliating words were completely cut off. Of course, he recognized the notebook. Slughorn had shown it to him years ago. But he can only look at it during teaching sessions. It's practically impossible to borrow it. Now, Slughorn has clearly given the laptop directly to Whit. Is this guy really worth being optimistic about? Snape fell into deep thought. At this point, Snape hadn't considered the difference in time. Back when he was in school, Slughorn was still teaching, and a whole bunch of young wizards were swarming around him. Gryffindor also has a potions genius, Lily Evans, who is in no way inferior to him. In this situation, even if Slughorn likes Snape, that affection will be shared among the other students. He naturally received far less care. Now that Slughorn has been retired for 10 years, some of the new generation of young wizards don't even know him. Under such circumstances, Whit, a young wizard recommended and favored by Dumbledore, who has shown outstanding talent in potions, naturally became Slughorn's only favorite. It was just a potion notebook. Slughorn didn't care at all that he gave it away. Faced with the words of his former potions teacher and former head of Slytherin, Snape wanted to refute them but couldn't, and his words were stuck in his throat, making him feel very uncomfortable. That little rascal must have done it on purpose. Snape, annoyed, snapped at the others. "Why aren't you writing this down?" The other students quickly picked up their notebooks and jotted down this little tip. Snape also mentally took out his little notebook and made a big fuss about Whit. Don't let him get a chance. The lesson continued, and Whit, having achieved his goal, behaved unusually well, doing whatever Snape said. Even if there were some discrepancies with Slughorn's notes, Whit pretended not to know. It's normal for potion masters to have their own unique potion-making techniques. There's no need to argue about everything. Besides, picking a fight once is enough. If it happens a few more times, Snape will lose his temper in no time. It's best not to be too reckless. After class, the fire was still burning under the crucible for decocting the compound medicine. This pot of medicine needed to be decocted for a very long time, at least a month. The lacewings alone require 21 days of cooking. Of course, this applies to individual brewing. If it is brewed in a potion workshop, some of the work will be done separately, and the time to finish the compound potion will be greatly reduced. But no matter how simplified the process is, a skilled pharmacist is still indispensable. Potions majors are always highly sought after, technically skilled professionals in the magical world. Chapter 30. Who did this? Well done. Snape's potions lesson ended, and he was on his way out of the headmaster's lounge. The people who had previously treated Victor coldly now extended their hands of friendship to him. Even the person who didn't get along with Whit came over to apologize to him. "Tucker Lawrence, from the Lawrence family, I'm so sorry about that." "It's all right. I'm the one who's embarrassed." How could Victor refuse when someone takes the initiative to befriend him? The Lawrence family, never heard of them. The wizarding world could not possibly consist of only 28 pure-blood families, and Grindelwald, a confirmed pure-blood, was not among those 28 families. The so-called sacred 28 families are simply the 28 families with the longest-standing lineage and the longest history that can be traced back to. Generally speaking, families whose ancestors for 3 generations were wizards and whose parents and immediate family members were not Muggle wizards can call themselves pure blood. My family runs a potion shop with businesses in Europe and America. My father was a student of Professor Slughorn and often talks to me about him. Lawrence's tone was unusually kind, a stark contrast to his previous cold attitude. The Lawrence family actually started with his father, and the key figure who helped their family rise to prominence was Slughorn. Although Slughorn only provided an opportunity, his father ultimately had to rely on his own strength to impress him. However, without Slughorn, that opportunity would never have appeared in front of his father. So when Lawrence learned that Whit was someone Slughorn favored, and that he had received a potion-making notebook from him, he immediately decided to befriend him. They even came over to apologize. "Does your family sell magic potions?" Whit's eyes suddenly lit up. It was like a pillow being delivered to someone who was sleepy. "I have a batch of medicine for treating boils here. I don't know if you'd like to buy it. Just give me the cost price." Previously, in order to farm achievements, Whit had brewed a large batch of boil-treating potions, more than 30 bottles in total. It's a shame to throw it away, but it's hard to sell, so it just sits under the bed collecting dust. A medicine for treating boils, Lawrence thought for a moment and then said, "I need to check the quality of the medicine." Although he intended to make connections, Lawrence was unwilling to do business at a loss. If the quality of the medicine was not good, the price he offered would probably be very low. Therefore, we must speak frankly beforehand. "Of course," Whit said understandingly. "You have to be meticulous when doing business. May I ask which potions are selling well right now? I'm a bit short on cash lately." Snape wasn't as kind as McGonagall, who gave him a nimbus for free for $2,000, and he couldn't bring himself to ask his family for Whit. Although the family farm is large, it doesn't have much cash flow. When traveling, one should only report good news and not bad news. If such a large sum of money is suddenly needed, Grandpa York will worry again. He wrote to me yesterday, asking why Whit didn't send letters home. Whit could only deflect the question by saying he was too busy and forgot. In reality, Whit had no idea what to write. Several times he picked up his pen, wrote only a few sentences, and then had to tear it up and rewrite it. In the end, he had no choice but to give up. Whit dared to say anything to someone's face, but if it was written in a letter, the old man would definitely treasure it and bring it out to mock him when he got back. This isn't Whit being overly pessimistic. There are bloody precedents to follow. Writing to York was much harder than writing to Slughorn, who only required compliments and showcasing his talents, such as Whit's flying contest with Harry. Praise Harry a few more times, and then casually mention some details to illustrate the fact that Whit won. Former. Whit shook his head, deciding to put that aside for now. His most important tasks were making money and farming treasure chests. We need to get as much magic stone powder as possible. The best-selling, most profitable potions, Lawrence pondered. Forgetfulness potion, stamina potion, and vitality potion. these 3 potions sell relatively well in the magical world. If you have the ability, you can brew some euphoric potions. They're the best-selling potion in the magical world, along with countless kinds of alcohol, food, snacks, and even some. Lawrence hesitated for a moment before whispering, "I don't know if you understand, but those kinds of things are sometimes mixed with a little bit of aphrodisiac. You can never have too much happiness, can you?" Can we say that Wit understood it instantly? It's better not to say such things out loud. I'll start with something simple, like making some forgetfulness potions. Of the 4 potions Lawrence mentioned, the forgetfulness potion is the simplest and easiest to make, while the joy potion is more difficult for Wit to refine at present, and the success rate is likely to be poor. Whether for achieving milestones or making money, it's not suitable for Victor now. Upon arriving outside the dormitory, Victor pulled out an entire box of boiled treatment solution from under the bed, the sheer quantity of which startled Lawrence. "So much," Lawrence said in a low voice. "For this quantity, I expect to be able to lower the purchase price a bit. Boil curing potions are among the simplest potions, and most wizards can make them themselves, so their price is naturally low. If you sell it for too high a price, the wizard will choose to buy the raw materials and refine it himself. This isn't an everyday item, so the demand isn't high. If you acquire too many, you have to lower the price to sell them off quickly. Of course, these 30 bottles of potion weren't enough to cause the Lawrence family to stockpile them. Lawrence simply wanted to remind Wit that these potions weren't selling well, and that he shouldn't refine them next time. Name your price." Wit didn't care about the price of these potions, acting like he was selling junk. Even though it was the cheapest medicine, Lawrence carefully checked each bottle. "The quality is quite good," Lawrence said with some surprise. "It's even better than the potions sold in stores. For this quality, I can offer 1 bottle of this product." "Make a deal." Wit didn't even try to haggle. He agreed immediately. Lawrence's offer was very sincere. It was obvious that he had increased the price because of Lawrence's reputation. The purchase price was only enough to make a small profit on the sale. If Wit tries to bargain further, he'll be being incredibly tactless. After the deal was finalized, both Wit and Lawrence were very satisfied. Page 27. Wit disposed of a batch of useless junk, while Lawrence felt he had befriended a future potion-making genius. The quality of the boil healing potion that Wit concocted was something that most adult wizards couldn't replicate. Although this deal isn't profitable right now, once we build a closer relationship, there will be plenty of opportunities to make money later. "It's a pity that first-year students can't go out," Lawrence said regretfully. "Otherwise, it would be very pleasant to have a butterbeer right now. Actually, the pumpkin juice in the cafeteria is pretty good too." Wit invited, "How about we go out for a meal together?" "No," Lawrence shook his head and said, "I have to send this batch of medicine back." "Okay, see you next time." Wit bid farewell to Lawrence, left the common room, and headed to the Great Hall for dinner. Before they even reached the Great Hall, Wit heard a strange rumor. Harry was going to use connections to join the Quidditch team. "Who did this?" "Nice job." Chapter 31. Rumors Stop with Cats. "Harry, did you really join the Gryffindor Quidditch team?" Ron asked Harry curiously, munching on a chicken leg. He didn't think there was anything wrong with Harry joining Quidditch. On the contrary, he was quite envious. Harry didn't have the same appetite as Ron at the moment. All he could think about was how Draco knew. McGonagall came to see him this morning, hoping he could join the Gryffindor Quidditch team, and by the afternoon, rumors about him getting in through connections were everywhere. That wretched Draco. How did he even know about this? Professor McGonagall found him in his Gryffindor dorm room. Harry had solemnly promised that he would keep the matter strictly confidential before the match. Now, keep it a secret. What secret? Even the cats at Hogwarts are spreading rumors that he's going to join Quidditch. What kind of secret is that? Harry is now very worried that McGonagall might kick him out of the Quidditch team because of this. Draco, that bastard. Harry's loathing for Draco reached its peak. He was one level above Snape. Meanwhile, Whit wasn't in a good mood either. That biased old bee couldn't wait a moment longer and opened a back door for Harry so quickly. At the Slytherin table, Whit secretly observed Harry while eating, gaining a great deal of information from Harry's expressions. Harry is a rather impulsive person, and his emotions are always written on his face. If McGonagall hadn't approached Harry and hadn't invited him to join Quidditch, Harry definitely wouldn't have had this expression when faced with the rumors. Harry panicked because it was true. Although Harry was certain he hadn't pulled any strings, the power of gossip was immense. Even adults couldn't withstand the pressure of rumors, so how could Harry possibly? If the rumors are allowed to fester, the overwhelming pressure will soon overwhelm Harry. But this is not possible. McGonagall will block all this pressure, preventing it from reaching Harry. Dumbledore is really too fast. Rumors can be very effective if they spread before Harry joins the Quidditch team, but their effectiveness is greatly reduced once Harry has already joined. Dumbledore certainly wouldn't directly tell McGonagall to let Harry join the Quidditch team. This method is too rudimentary. How could Dumbledore be so incompetent? He must have subtly influenced McGonagall to make the decision herself and to invite Harry to join Quidditch. McGonagall knew perfectly well that Harry hadn't gotten in through connections, so she naturally wouldn't allow Harry to be wronged for no reason. A few rumors that never materialized, and McGonagall's decades of teaching experience and prestige. Need I say more? In the end, perhaps only Draco would still complain a few times, unwilling to give up. If Harry had waited just 1 or 2 more days, it would have been much harder for him to join the Quidditch team. Wouldn't it have been better to wait until his second year? As long as I get the gold achievement, I'm willing to give the purple achievement, Wit, to Harry. After taking a big bite of his steak, Wit began to ponder. Since we can't stop Harry, we have to maximize the benefits of this rumor. I've got it. After finishing his meal, Wit did not leave the auditorium as usual, but quietly savored his dessert, waiting for the right moment. Given Professor McGonagall's personality, she wouldn't let this matter drag on until tomorrow. Half an hour later, as expected, McGonagall arrived at the Great Hall and publicly supported Harry. With McGonagall's guarantee, Gryffindor and Hufflepuff believed it instantly, and Ravenclaw, after some thought, also believed that Harry hadn't pulled any strings. Only the Slytherins remained somewhat suspicious, especially Draco. If he weren't so timid, he would have almost publicly accused McGonagall of favoritism. Amidst such public outrage, Wit stood up and walked over to Harry. "Congratulations, Harry." Wit said sincerely, "I believe you joined Quidditch on your own merit." Harry never expected that Wit would support him. He thought Wit was there to mock him, and his affection for Wit instantly soared. "Thank you," Harry said quietly. "No, I should be thanking you," Wit said generously. "Actually, I also want to join the Slytherin Quidditch team, but unfortunately, the Slytherin Quidditch team is not short of players, and Hogwarts has not had a precedent of letting a first-year student join for a long time. Originally, I had no chance at all, but now that I have you, I think I might be able to give it a shot. Keep it up. Hopefully, our next match will be on the Quidditch pitch." Wit's words were so eloquent and beautiful that not only Harry, but even McGonagall looked at him with tenderness. While some in Slytherin were dissatisfied, they did not show it. Only Draco stared wide-eyed, feeling betrayed. No, he has to talk to Wit about how to support that guy Harry Pot, which is treason against the Red Tower. In the Slytherin common room, Wit was cornered against the wall by Draco and Goyle. "Vit, you've disappointed me so much." "How could you speak well of Potter?" Draco said, his face full of heartache. "When have I ever spoken up for Harry?" Wit calmly retorted. "I've always been speaking up for us." "You're still trying to argue." Draco said angrily. "I heard you say with my own ears that Harry joined Quidditch on merit. What else is this but helping him? I think Lucius would be very disappointed if he knew you had this idea." Wit looked at Draco sympathetically and explained, "Professor McGonagall has already stood up for Harry. No matter how unwilling you are, Harry cannot be kicked out of the Quidditch team. Why not take this opportunity to benefit yourself? The hardest thing is to start something from scratch. Harry has set a precedent and was able to join Quidditch in his first year, so can we join Quidditch in our first year too? I admit that he passed the Quidditch test through his own ability, not to praise him, but for our own sake." "I remember your father is a member of the school board," Wit whispered, leaning closer. "With a little maneuvering, Harry can join the Quidditch team based on his ability, and you can join the Quidditch team based on your ability, too." "I was helping you, and you're accusing me of betrayal." Wit clutched his chest, turning around and angrily rebuking Draco. Draco apologized to Wit almost instinctively. "I'm sorry, I misunderstood you." "It's all right," Vita said generously. "We're friends, after all." Draco arrived at the perfect time. Wit praised Harry, saying that he was indeed trying to join Quidditch, hoping Snape would give him a chance to join Quidditch through his own abilities. Did Snape want Harry to participate in Quidditch and win the championship? He certainly didn't, as it would remind him of some bad memories. But Snape also knew that James was indeed very talented in Quidditch. If Harry had inherited this talent, the current Seeker in Slytherin might not have been able to win. Wit wanted to use this opportunity to let Snape see him, to see him as a Slytherin who could surpass Harry in talent. That's why Wit ran over and formally declared war on Harry. He believed that Snape must have had such a dream, and he also believed that Snape's hatred for Harry was definitely greater than his own. This would give Wit a chance. The opportunity to join a Quidditch team based on one's own abilities. Does Draco have that ability? Wit thinks he has another kind of ability. Broom. Since Lucius was willing to sponsor a batch of Nimbus 2001s in his second year, he might also be willing to sponsor a batch of Nimbus 2000s in his first year. If it works out, Wit will save a lot of money. If it doesn't, he won't lose anything in just a few words. It's unbelievable that Quidditch, a competitive sport, would allow tools to have generational differences. Wit really doesn't want to talk about it. Chapter 32. Why don't you dare to argue with Dumbledore? Draco, of course, couldn't see through Wit's scheme. He was overjoyed and shouted loudly, "Victor, you are truly my best friend. I'm going to write to my dad right now. If Poot can join Quidditch, I can too." After saying a few words to Draco, Wit stood in the corner and turned his gaze to his feet. Page 28. The serpent demon had moved off Gore and was crawling up his trouser leg towards him. "You were the one who spread those rumors this morning, weren't you?" "Yes, master," the serpent demon nodded. "Don't do anything so dangerous next time," Wit warned. "Dumbledore's control over Hogwarts is far beyond your imagination. Some things are better left undone." If the rumors had been spread by someone else, Wit would have naturally kept quiet and not interfered. But since it was the serpent demon who did it, he couldn't stay out of it. Although the probability of being discovered is low, it is not zero. "Go and call James tonight, and take some money to Hogsmeade to buy me some materials for the forgetfulness potion." This time, keep an eye on the boss and make sure he doesn't put any more defective products in. The materials for the medicine to treat Boyle's last time were not brought back by the snake demon due to his physical condition. The goods were delivered by the boss using an owl. That despicable, unscrupulous merchant actually stuffed some loose, substandard products into his materials. Although the number was small, Wit still felt unhappy. Upon hearing Wit's words, a fierce glint flashed in the serpent demon's eyes, and its fangs sprang out from its upper jaw. Seeing this, Wit quickly told him to take it back. Don't be so fierce. In normal business, it's common to have some defective products. If you don't find a way to sell them, you're going to be stuck with them. The boss wasn't particularly unreasonable. Just keep an eye on him, but don't act like you're about to kill him all the time. The serpent demon glanced at Vita with a wronged expression. If you hadn't been so fierce, how could I have shown my teeth? Don't make such a big deal out of it. It made me think you wanted to kill him. Happy weekends always seem to pass too quickly. In the blink of an eye, time is gone. The young wizard had to continue facing the tedious charms class, the garlic-smelling defense against the dark arts class, the stern transfiguration class, and the incredibly oppressive potions class. The energy accumulated over the 2 months of summer vacation was quickly exhausted by the complicated courses. Hogwarts' curriculum is still quite humane. At least the young wizards can feel that they are alive, rather than becoming walking corpses. One day, potions class ended. Wit stayed behind as usual to clean the classroom, and incidentally, to find some materials that the students hadn't finished using. Just as he was counting, Snape suddenly walked in, startling Wit so much that he quickly hid the package behind his back. Put your things away properly. Nobody cares about these scraps. Snape knew perfectly well what Wit was doing, staying after every class to clean the classroom. His intentions were so obvious that anyone could see through them. What's there to pretend about? He, Wit chuckled as he put the potion ingredients into his pocket, then asked curiously, Professor, is there anything I can help you with? Quidditch. Snape whispered, you want to apply to join Quidditch. Why? I don't think you like this sport. After class, Wit either read books or brewed potions. Apart from flying class, he didn't even touch a broom. This is the kind of person who wrote an application to join Quidditch. This is no joke. I want to help Slytherin win the House Cup and achieve a 7-peat. Wit smiled serenely and said, I want to accomplish something glorious as the beginning of my journey into the magical world. 7 consecutive Academy Cup titles are the most suitable and perfect choice. Each Quidditch win adds 50 points to the house's score, up to a maximum of 150 points, which is enough to influence the outcome of a match. You may not know this, Wit said deliberately. Harry has a great talent for flying. No one can beat him except me. Harry Potter, flying Quidditch. One word after another assaulted Snape relentlessly, but Snape remained calm. He saw burning ambition in Wit's eyes. On Sunday morning, I'll go to the Quidditch selection with Draco. Slytherin will not accept 2 first-year students. Only one of you and him can pass the test. Wit, sir, he asked tentatively, if Draco wins, will Mr. Lucius sponsor something for Slytherin? Snape gave Victor a gloating look and said with certainty, looks like you're all set. No, how did my plan to kill 2 birds with 1 stone turn into shooting myself in the foot? As if to make it clearer for Victor to die, Snape patiently added one more sentence. Dumbledore doesn't want too many first-year students to join Quidditch. In each house, only the most outstanding students are qualified to break the rules. Understood. Wit understood. Deng Dieu, you rascal. You bastard. And Wit stared at Snape resentfully, My dear headmaster, why don't you dare to argue with Dumbledore? I think you could be a little bolder, Professor, Wit suggested in a low voice. Headmaster Dumbledore is, after all, a Gryffindor, and he doesn't have the same courage as us Slytherins. The capable rise, and the mediocre fall. Slytherin doesn't need to care so much about students' ages. Slytherin courage. Snape once thought there was something wrong with his ears. After repeatedly confirming that he hadn't misheard, Snape blurted out a sentence. Every student at Hogwarts can offer suggestions to the headmaster. In other words, you should say that to Dumbledore yourself. Don't drag me into it. I'll write it now. I'll write to Headmaster Dumbledore right now. Victor was not intimidated at all. He immediately took out a parchment, and the sound of pen tip scratching across paper filled the empty classroom. He wants to add Quidditch, and he also wants a new broom. Since Snape was so useless, he had to come in person. Professor Dumbledore has gone too far. He must hear the righteous words from Slytherin and deeply realize his mistakes. Wit picked up his pen and immediately wrote a wild, cursive script. Dear Professor Dumbledore, I recently heard. Very quickly, Wit finished writing the letter, spent a coin, and asked the school's owl to deliver it to Dumbledore. After finishing the letter, Wit strolled all the way to the castle. James. Where did James go? Wit was holding 2 bottles of Philosopher's Stone powder in his hand. He had painstakingly collected 4 chests and opened them to get 2 bottles of powder. It was originally intended for the Serpent demon, but now it can only be wasted on James. Dumbledore is unlikely to change his mind, and Draco is currently in a bind and cannot back down. Faced with the temptation of 7 light wheels worth 2,000, Wit had no choice but to crush them with sheer power. There was no other way. Chapter 33, Night Tour, Part 1. The Hogwarts Headmaster's Office. Dumbledore looked at the complaint letter delivered by the owl and was both amused and exasperated. Although Werther used respectful language, the melancholy that permeated his words could not be dispelled. They were practically pointing their fingers at Dumbledore and accusing him of favoritism. He looked completely vulnerable. While it's true that it was somewhat inappropriate for Dumbledore, as the referee, to personally intervene, it's hard to believe that Wit had spoken so righteously and solemnly to Harry before turning around and trying to curry favor with Draco. After being targeted, its defenses were breached at lightning speed. Dumbledore found it particularly interesting. No wonder the Sorting Hat sorted Wit into Slytherin without hesitation for almost half a second. Dumbledore initially thought it was a matter of bloodline, but now it seems that Wit was born to be Slytherin. Shrewd, ambitious, astute, and yearning for glory. Write a letter to Slughorn. He probably wouldn't mind sending Wit a broom. Dumbledore wasn't short of money. It was just inappropriate for him to deliver the broom. After dealing with Victor's matter, Dumbledore turned his attention to Harry. 2 weeks or so, it's about time. Dumbledore was somewhat reluctant and somewhat resentful. Harry, that honest boy, hasn't shown any curiosity about what's in the 4th floor cubicle for so long. He just focuses on attending classes and studying. Even when he was being targeted by Snape and was furious, he still followed the rules and didn't run to the 4th floor. There was no other way but for him to intervene personally. Page 29. After a moment's thought, Dumbledore decided to use the 2 troublemakers from the Weasley family as a starting point. At noon, Wit was eating lunch. 6 long-eared owls tossed a huge rectangular package in front of Harry, knocking over a huge pile of food on the table. Although the package wasn't shaped like a broom, anyone with eyes could tell it was a broom. Draco stared at Harry with a look of resentment and tugged slightly at Wit's sleeve. Wit, you can definitely beat Pot, right? What do you mean? Whit turned his head and sensed that Draco's expression was a little off. "I misunderstood you before," Draco said, biting his lip with extreme reluctance. "I've decided to withdraw from the Quidditch draw this weekend." "You're going to back out. How are you going to explain that to your father?" Whit couldn't believe that Draco would withdraw from the selection. Would Lucius agree to that? "My dad will agree," Draco said dejectedly. "He never refuses my requests." Although reluctant, Draco was even more unwilling to let Whit be eliminated from Slytherin Quidditch because of him. Indeed, Draco believed that if he didn't withdraw, Whit would undoubtedly lose. Slytherin could not possibly refuse 7 Nimbus 2000s to choose a first-year student. The method to join Quidditch was discovered by Whit, who kindly reminded him of it, and even though he was wronged by Whit, he still treated him as a friend. Draco simply couldn't bear to take Whit's place. He hesitated for a long time before making this difficult choice. "Do not worry." Whit grasped Draco's hand and said firmly, "I will win." Thanks to Draco for the assist, we saved 2 bottles of Philosopher's Stone powder. Without Draco, who's always making off-field deals, the Seeker from Slytherin's original team, who's worse than Harry, is no match for Whit. Although Harry is a formidable opponent, there is still plenty of time before the Quidditch match, and James can work harder. 14 hours a day, and the deer won't die of exhaustion. Wait until the last moment to feed the magic stone powder, then consider the situation. There's no need to rush to use the powder. Draco's voluntary withdrawal was a huge relief for Whit. Even walking has become much easier. After finishing his meal, on his way back to his dorm, Whit was humming a little tune by Headway when Hermione suddenly stopped him. "Fraud." Hermione angrily pointed her wand at Vitter. "Miss Granger," Whit asked, puzzled, "what did I lie to you about?" "Don't say things that are so easy to misunderstand." On the train to school, Hermione angrily reminded her, "I checked that method of training magic you mentioned, and it doesn't exist at all. You lied to me on the first day of school, saying Draco and the others were purebloods." "I'm not lying to you. Draco and the others are indeed purebloods." Whit offered a wry retort, his expression one of utter helplessness. "It's just a matter of a word. Why are you taking it so seriously? You even went out of your way to look up information. You're not stupid enough to have been looking it up all this time, are you?" "I'm not stupid," Hermione explained seriously. "I've heard that pureblood families have techniques to increase their magical power, and if I don't know them, my grades will fall behind theirs. I understand it's a competitive spirit. There's a reason why Hermione didn't have any friends when she was a child. The magical world isn't a fairy tale world," Whit said in a low voice. "Even if there are ways to increase magic power, you can't find them just by flipping through a few books. I still need to go back and brew potions to earn money, Miss Granger. If you have nothing else to do, please leave." "Brewing potions?" Hermione asked curiously. "What kind of potions? Are you short of money? This is none of your business." Whit didn't want to get involved with the future Minister of Magic, and if Hermione hadn't come to him, he wouldn't have said a single unnecessary word. His time is very tight. His schedule is packed full. "I can't spare a single moment." Whit bypassed Hermione and returned to his Slytherin bedroom via another path. No sooner had Whit left than George and Fred jumped out. "Your question was quite rude," Fred said, feigning arrogance. "The techniques for enhancing magic used by pureblood families cannot be easily shared with others." George chimed in. "Even if you go to the library to look it up, you won't find any information about these things outside the library. Unless," Fred's eyes flashed with a dangerous light, "unless you dare to sneak into the restricted area of Hogwarts at night. You might not be able to find the answers you want there. The two of them spoke in unison, making it sound so real. But Hermione wouldn't fall for their tricks. I knew you guys hadn't given up on that plan. Sneaking into the restricted area at night is a serious violation of school rules and could even get you expelled from Hogwarts. Hermione rolled her eyes and said, I would never do something so dangerous. That would be such a shame. Fred clicked his tongue twice, hooked his arm around George's shoulder, and deliberately said in a voice that Hermione could hear, if she doesn't learn the pureblood family's magic growth techniques, her final exam grades will definitely be outside the top 10. Ever since they heard from Seamus that Wit had used bloodline magic to subdue them, George and Fred have been researching the magical bloodlines of wizards. The fact that magic could be cast instantly, without a wand, seemed incredibly cool to the two of them. But they searched every library outside Hogwarts, asked professors, asked their father, and even risked danger to ask their mother. All you get are some completely useless nonsense. This left the two of them extremely frustrated. Chapter 34 Night Tour, Part 2. This morning, Fred overheard people talking in a Hogwarts portrait, saying that bloodlines not only pass on magic, but also influence a child's talents. If a father has a certain talent, his children are very likely to inherit that talent. They also talked about James and Harry, saying they were both excellent Quidditch players. Let's take this as an example. Incidentally, the library's restricted section also mentioned that it contained some research books on bloodline inheritance. These words enlightened George and Fred. They then went to Harry to inquire about the matter, and confirmed that Harry had never touched a broom before and could perform some very beautiful moves with proper training. This made Fred and George even more curious about bloodline magic. So they invited Harry to go with them to the forbidden section to look up records about blood magic. Then the three of them were scolded by Hermione. Hermione warned the three that if they dared to sneak out at night and violate school rules, she would report them to Professor McGonagall. George and Fred couldn't stand it and immediately gave Hermione a sarcastic retort. To their surprise, Harry was so frightened by Hermione that he actually started to back out. Harry felt that the Quidditch incident had already put Professor McGonagall in a difficult position. If McGonagall finds out that he's sneaking into the restricted section, she'll be very disappointed. After much deliberation, Harry decided it was best not to take the risk. George and Fred tried to persuade Harry repeatedly, but failed, so they had no choice but to turn their attention to Hermione. Harry's reluctance to go stems from Hermione. If they could simply deal with Hermione and get her to promise not to report them to McGonagall, wouldn't Harry be willing to go? So the two began to secretly follow Hermione, and they overheard Wit lying to Hermione, saying that pureblood families knew some techniques that could enhance magic. Their eyes lit up instantly. They knew they had to make good use of this. That's why the scene described earlier happened. A dozen or so, Hermione shrieked, her eyes wide as she retorted, impossible. In class, those pureblood families didn't perform as well as me at all. That's because the magic you've learned so far hasn't consumed much magic power, which is why there's not much of a gap between you. Fred blurted out, once the professors start teaching magic that requires a lot of magical energy, your grades will plummet. A dozen or so might be considered high. That's right, George agreed with Fred with a serious expression. Hermione was instantly terrified. A dozen or so. Oh, if she only ranked a dozen or so in the exam, it would be better to just kill her. In comparison, violating school rules doesn't seem so unacceptable. After much hesitation, Hermione quietly agreed. Are you sure the restricted section contains such books? George and Fred exchanged a glance and said in unison, of course. Okay, I'll go out with you guys tonight. Page 30. Hermione closed her eyes and prayed. I hope we won't be discovered by the castle caretaker, nor by the patrolling professors, and certainly not. Do not worry. Fred patted his chest, interrupting Hermione's rambling. It's just a night stroll. We guarantee nothing will happen. Midnight. The snake demon opened its eyes and quietly slithered off the bed. Based on experience, Victor would definitely not wake up before 6 o'clock, so he has plenty of time to use. Hogwarts is a dangerous and hypocritical place. On the surface, everything was peaceful and filled with laughter. In reality, however, deadly threats are everywhere. The Forbidden Forest is home to countless dangerous and wondrous creatures, including ferocious beasts like the eight-eyed giant spider, which preys on humans and can be found in large numbers. In the library's restricted section, books about black magic were piled higher than a mountain. An average person couldn't finish reading it in a lifetime. The master is so insecure. How could he entrust his life to that hypocritical old man named Dumbledore? The serpent demon could see at a glance the coldness beneath Dumbledore's kind exterior. If necessary, this old man is willing to sacrifice anything. He is completely unreliable. And that damn defense against the dark arts professor, his stuttering, fake smile is disgusting to even snakes. No amount of garlic can hide the dark aura on the back of the head. The owner said there was a 1,000-year-old serpent monster beneath the castle. That haunted castle is far more dangerous than the Forbidden Forest. This makes the snake feel very insecure. Therefore, he must learn more and more powerful magic, obtain the magic stone, and grow into his complete form. Only when the power is in his hands can he protect his master's safety. The serpent demon had traveled the route to the Hogwarts library countless times and knew it like the back of his hand. However, today is a little different. It's too noisy. There are too many unnecessary sounds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 footsteps. What's going on? Are you guys on a group outing? The snake demon hid in the shadows of the corner, listening to the footsteps approaching, its eyes fixed on the corner of the stairwell without blinking. The first to come out were two red-haired guys. The second one was someone wearing glasses. Isn't this the unfortunate savior the master was talking about, Harry Potter? He also went out for a night stroll. And he brought such a large group of bodyguards. Anyone who didn't know better would think that someone's president had been shot and needed to be protected by others. Could you please keep your voices down? Hermione said uneasily. We're out at night, which is a serious violation of school rules. If you get caught, you'll be expelled from school. Hermione's incessant chatter drew disgusted looks from both Harry and Ron. I feel like he's even more long-winded than my mom, Ron complained. Harry nodded, agreeing with Ron. However, he was also a little uneasy and asked in a low voice, Aren't we being a bit too conspicuous? Don't worry, Harry, Fred said confidently. We can walk out, even if the castle is closed. That idiot Filch is probably patrolling the tower right now. He couldn't possibly hear anything from here. Meow. As soon as Fred finished speaking, they heard a sharp meow, and a pair of blood-red cat eyes stared intently at them. Oh no, it's Filch. Fred's face flushed with anger. He shouldn't be here. I'll distract him, you guys. Before Fred could finish speaking, a series of giggles came from the side of the castle. Mischief sang in his strange and shrill voice. Mischief worms, nocturnal wanderers, 5 of them, chattering away. They're over here, come quick. You'll be kicked out of Hogwarts very soon. Damn Peeves. George led Harry around a corner in a panic, then his expression brightened instantly. He gave Harry and the others a shove, pushing the 3 of them into a secret passage and instructed, "Run. I'll distract Peeves." The snake demon, hiding in a corner, witnessed the entire farce. "With such a commotion, we can't go to the library. It'll definitely be under lockdown. Going back now would be too early." The serpent demon flicked its tongue and swam into the secret passage Harry had just entered, intending to follow it and take a look. Chapter 35, Night Tour, Part 2. "I told you guys were too loud." Hermione muttered complaints as she ran. "If I get expelled, it must be because of you guys." Harry was already in a state of turmoil, and having to listen to Hermione's complaints only made him more agitated. Unfortunately, he was in the wrong. It was indeed because they were making too much noise that they attracted the guards' attention, and he didn't know how to refute them. So Harry silently sped up. Ron had originally planned to say something to Hermione, but seeing Harry speed up, he could only hurry to keep up. He was so tired that he couldn't say anything more. Hermione could only shut up and grit her teeth as she watched the two run faster and faster. 6 minutes later, Harry and his two companions emerged from the other end of the secret passage. The surrounding silence and darkness made them feel exceptionally safe. Here, the serpent demon, following behind the three, also cautiously peeked out. "Isn't this the corridor near the trapdoor on the 4th floor?" "Not right." The alarm bells rang in the heart of the serpent demon. He seems to have inadvertently been drawn into Dumbledore's wicked little theatre. Beyond that lies an abyss. At that moment, a small emerald green snake quietly withdrew its head. Before Harry, and his friends could settle down, Filch's signature voice suddenly came from behind them. The troublemaker who was out at night got away. Mischievous Ghost said there were 5 of them. He had 1 on his side, but where did the other 3 go? "I will definitely catch them and put them in solitary confinement for a month." Harry's relaxed expression froze instantly. The 3 exchanged a glance and shouted at the same time, "Run!" He ran out in a panic, not knowing where to go. Using the scent of the serpent demon, Harry and his friends cleverly slipped inside the trapdoor. Meanwhile, Filch was walking a few steps closer when he suddenly heard Peeves's shouts. "The students aren't sleeping. They're on the 3rd floor, on the 3rd floor." Filch hurried downstairs, and as soon as he left, Harry, and the others rushed out of the trapdoor room. Although Dumbledore was not seen at all, the serpent demon was certain that Dumbledore had been watching from the vicinity the whole time. Snake's senses are not limited to sight. The scent in the air told the serpent demon that there was another person here. Today he finally witnessed what the greatest wizard in the magical world truly meant. Poor Potter, he was like a puppet in a circus, completely at the mercy of others. The owner must be reminded to be even more careful with Dumbledore. Compared to the dread of the serpent demon, Dumbledore seemed completely unconcerned, thinking that staying up all night at his age would easily lead to sudden death. In order to lure Harry over, Dumbledore really took care of him the whole time. Using a confusion charm to secretly guide Filch, Harry was finally led into the room with the trap door. The remaining doors, including those belonging to Fulvi the Cerberus, were all given even more striking magic by Dumbledore. Otherwise, in the dark, with such a ferocious 3-headed dog baring its teeth, what if Hermione and the others didn't notice the trapdoor? "One more time, one more all-nighter." Dumbledore said that his old bones couldn't withstand such torment. Ron, Harry, and Hermione. Dumbledore recalled the three's special talents and pondered how to get the professor to arrange special tests based on their strengths. By the way, should we include Wyatt as well? Dumbledore was undecided. He needed to go back and think it over carefully. Page 31. Quidditch selections this weekend. The rules are simple. Whoever catches the golden thief first wins. The brooms used in the competition are all the same, with a 1500 swivel wheel. Before Nimbus 2000 came out, professional competitive brooms were the best choice for Quidditch brooms. Compared to the Comet series of other houses, the Slytherin team has significantly more funds. Of course, a 1500 yuan light wheel is no match for a 2000 yuan light wheel. Compared to the original model, the new model doesn't offer a significant improvement in the broom's functionality. It only addresses some minor issues. It is a standard, tooth-based product. The Nimbus 2000 is a completely new model, with all its specifications significantly exceeding those of the Nimbus 1000, including its price. Touching the broom in his hand, Whit was still not satisfied. The product gap between generations is too big. He still needs to find a way to buy a Nimbus for 2,000. Terensu, Mr. Terence, how do you expect to compare? Seeing that Victor completely disregarded him and even mispronounced his name, Terence's already bad mood worsened. But he was still willing to respect the rules of the game. Whoever catches the golden snitch wins, Terence said coldly. On the grass, the golden snitch took off and soared into the air. Victor and Terence simultaneously flipped over and mounted their brooms, flying separately to the left and right. With James's card in hand, Whit's dynamic vision instantly reached its maximum, and knowledge that wasn't originally his appeared in his mind. The frequency of the golden snipe's wing flapping and its flight trajectory, the point of impact, and the amplitude of light movement on a spherical refracting surface. There are also turning patterns at different speeds. Cho Chang truly lives up to his Ravenclaw reputation. He even managed to calculate this. That's right, the above data was based on conjectures and calculations provided by Cho Chang, with James handling the errands and experiments and finally compiled into a statistical summary. James alone couldn't possibly handle such delicate work. Qiu Zhang alone is not quick enough to catch the golden thief under extreme conditions, so she cannot obtain such accurate data. You know what? Whit really thinks these two are a bit. Okay, let's start the competition. Whit turned his head rapidly, the figure of the golden thief flashing everywhere. Normally, the only way to lock onto an opponent is to forcefully chase after them with a broom, but now Whit's brain is working at lightning speed. While Terence is chasing downwards, Whit flies towards the upper right of him. Today's wind is from the southeast, with an upward airflow and a force of level 5. The probability of the golden thief turning against the wind is extremely low. Simply wait patiently, and you're sure to strike. After a period of relentless pursuit, the golden snitch suddenly changed course. Terence watched as the golden thief he so desperately wanted slipped past him by the hair and pounced on Whit. This feeling is even worse than having your girlfriend run off with someone else. With just a flick of his wrist, Whit caught the golden thief who had walked right into his trap. Whit touched the patterns on the golden snitch's body, smiled, and raised his hand to Snape. Qiu Zhang's calculation formula is quite useful, but its success rate would likely be greatly reduced in more complex official competitions. Ultimately, it comes down to the athlete's individual talent. If Terence had caught the thief directly, then Whit's strategy of waiting for the thief to come to him would have become a complete joke. Fortunately, he succeeded. Successfully delivered a small Ravenclaw shock to all the Slytherin students watching below. Lawrence looked as wilted as a frostbitten eggplant. He flew down dejectedly, handed over the broom without a word, and left the field. Whit became a rising star on the field. That was fantastic, Vita. Draco waved his hands excitedly, as if he had won. That's how it is. During a match, you have to humiliate Pottle like this. I can't wait to see his frustrated face. It's unclear what kind of image was in Draco's mind, but when he said those words, His pale face was filled with lewdness. Chapter 36. I want to discuss something with you. Maybe we can pull some strings. Professor. Wit approached Snape with the golden snitch in hand and said sincerely, "On behalf of Hagrid the Yak, I apologize for what happened before I enrolled. More than half a month has passed, and Wit has only earned 27 credits and obtained 1 treasure chest. If this drags on, by the end of the year when Dumbledore will have gained hundreds of points, his golden achievement might truly become a pipe dream." Although apologizing now might not necessarily get Snape's forgiveness, at least it won't leave him feeling rebuffed. Snape lowered his head and carefully examined Wit. He had to admit that Wit was the most perfect student he had ever encountered in his teaching career. His character, methods, and abilities were beyond measure for someone his age. Even a perfect score wouldn't be enough to describe him. Although the unexpected admission made Snape feel very frustrated, Victor's apology was so sincere that he could forgive him. Snape, however, still had a few doubts. "You seem anxious, or perhaps you're wary of someone." "Harry Potter." Wit calmly uttered a name that made Snape's eyes narrow. "Our savior, sir." "Professor," Wit turned his gaze toward Gryffindor and said softly, "I told you before that I wanted to use Slytherin's 7 consecutive titles as the beginning of my journey into the wizarding world. But I didn't tell you about the difficulties involved. To be honest, I didn't think it would be difficult at first. After all, Slytherin had already won 6 consecutive championships, and with me this year, winning 7 consecutive championships was almost a certainty." Snape sneered at Wit. "Look at your narcissism. The Sorting Hat should have sorted you into Ravenclaw." Ignoring Snape's disdainful look, Wit continued. "Until recently, Harry joined Quidditch. The Saviour, the first-year students joining Quidditch, and that forbidden area on the 4th floor that Professor Dumbledore emphasized. I've inquired about it. It suddenly appeared this year. Don't you think all of this seems a bit too deliberate? Was it intentional?" Snape felt all right. Apart from Wit, the other students didn't notice these problems at all. "I didn't think too much about it," Wit interrupted Snape. "In short, even if he is the savior, I must win 7 consecutive championships. So I wanted to talk to you about going through some back channels." Wit's righteous and stern face suddenly turned mercenary, and Snape couldn't keep up with his pace at all. One second he was thinking about how Wit was going to break the deadlock. The next second Wit shamelessly came over and begged him to help him get in through the back door. That shamelessness. Very much like a Slytherin. Shrewdness, glory, and victory are paramount. That being said, why does he feel such a strong urge to hit someone? Snape felt his hands were inexplicably itchy, much itchier than his hair that hadn't been washed in decades. "Professor, no, Dean." Wit rubbed his hands together and said with a forced smile, "It's been 6 years of hard work by the Slytherin seniors to get to where we are today. How can we let the efforts of our seniors go to waste because of a savior who suddenly cuts in line? Even if I can tolerate it, you can't, right?" Snape took 2 deep breaths. Although he wanted to say no to Wit, reason ultimately prevailed. Wit is right. Slytherin's 6 years of hard work cannot be wasted because of this. "What do you want to do?" "It's nothing really," Wit said with a smile. "It's just that you can speed up the pace of the course and deepen the content. When other students can't answer or do it, I can. You can then naturally give Slytherin extra points, and if you add more points in one class, little by little, you can gradually widen the gap." That's it. Snape felt like he'd been completely disappointed. "A skilled warrior achieves victory without ostentation," Wit said confidently. "If you were to arrange the curriculum according to my learning pace, I guarantee that all the first-year students, except me, will have phenomenal grades by the end of the year." But if you follow the textbook's pace and only learn 2 kinds of potions a year and memorize some written knowledge, even if I do very well on the final exam, my exam paper won't be significantly different from others. Oh, you're very confident. Snape asked with a soft, Where have you gotten to now? I'm currently learning how to make a happiness potion for 6th graders. I barely managed to concoct it the day before yesterday. 1 out of 4 ingredients succeeded. Whit took out a bottle of somewhat greyish potion and handed it to Snape. Page 32. Snape opened the potion, smelled it, then poured out some and took a small sip. A warm smile involuntarily appeared on his gloomy face. Whit trembled with fear at the sight of his laughter. Good. After Snape calmed down, he unusually praised Victor. This euphoria potion is of good quality and can get good reviews from him. Although the success rate is not high, only 1 out of 4 was successful. But considering that this is a potion for 6th graders and Victor has only been in school for a little over half a month, this talent is undoubtedly outstanding. I'll consider it. Thank you, Dean. Whit bowed happily to Snape and strode back to Hogwarts. As he passed through the central courtyard, he suddenly saw a very familiar figure. This guy looks like Simo, except he doesn't have eyebrows. Wait, no eyebrows. Whit realized this is Seamus. Aside from him, no one else at Hogwarts would blow their eyebrows off. Simo, what are you doing? As soon as Whit walked over, he heard a loud bang. He didn't know what had exploded, but half of Simo's face was now blacker than the bottom of a pot. It's you, Whit. Somewhat dejected, Simo said, I think I probably can't beat you. Before he enrolled, Whit's superhuman strength left him completely bewildered. After enrolling, Whit instantly transformed into a model student, achieving perfect scores in all subjects. The phrase Seamus heard most often in class was, Slytherin, 1 point added. As a friend, Simo was naturally happy for Whit, but at the same time, he was also frustrated. Why do my spells always break? Seamus scratched his head in frustration, then touched a bald patch of scalp. Ah, Tilda. Seamus's mood instantly exploded, and his wand began to hiss and spark. Avoid your weapons. Whit drew his wand and instantly cast a disarming spell, knocking Seamus's wand away. Although Madame Malkin's robe is protected by a fireproof charm, there are limits to its effectiveness. With you burning it like that, even the most fireproof clothing won't withstand the flames. Furthermore, I think you should learn a different spell. Whit suggested, how about an explosion curse? Seamus's magic is more volatile than that of ordinary wizards, and coupled with his fiery temper, his magic bursts forth when he gets anxious while chanting spells. No matter what the spell is, he'll turn it into an explosion spell. With gradual guidance, Simo should be able to correct his impatient nature and should be able to chant mantras normally without much problem. The problem is that Whit doesn't have that much time. He's incredibly busy. Besides, it's better to guide than to block. If we're going to explode, let's explode completely. While others start with the levitation charm to gradually control their magic, Seamus could start with the explosion charm and slowly learn to control his magic. Even if there's insufficient control, it's okay. At least we can see the results. It's better than failing all the time. Chapter 37, Fire Arrows. Explosion spell. Seamus scratched his head. I don't think there's such a spell in the textbook. Of course not, Whit said matter-of-factly. Hogwarts doesn't teach the explosion charm at all. You have to learn it yourself in the library. Since the start of the semester, have you been to the library, Simo? Why would I go to that place for no reason? Seamus asked Whit, puzzled. Is the library a proper Gryffindor place? Whit had no answer to Simo's question. I clearly remember when school started. You were so confident that you wanted to compete with me in magic and surpass me. Who would have thought you were such a monster? Zemo muttered. You learn it in no time and master it in no time. In just 3 days since school started, my dream has been ruthlessly crushed by you. You still have the nerve to say that now. Zemo's expression was just like that of a foreigner watching a video to learn how to chop vegetables. He had just arranged the vegetables and looked down when the person opposite him had already finished chopping them all. The confusion in his eyes was clearly visible. Learn. Learn, my ass. So it's actually my fault then. Wit patted Seamus on the shoulder and said with a smile, as an apology, I'll teach you the explosion spell right now. The spell is a thunderous explosion. Pay attention to my hand movements. When waving the wand, be resolute and keep your emotions high. And most importantly, never use this spell on anyone after you've learned it. Wit solemnly warned, the explosion charm is a very dangerous spell. The protective magic on the wizard robes sold by Madame Malkin is no match for the power of the explosion charm. This is completely different from the little sparks that usually appear when you fail to cast a spell. Come with me, I'll demonstrate it for you first. Wit led Seamus out of Hogwarts Castle to a deserted open space, aimed his wand at a rock not far away, and waved it. He chanted, "Thunderous explosion." The crimson incantation shot out rapidly, exploding instantly upon hitting the rock and creating a tremendous roar. The rocks were blasted to pieces. Wow, Zemo exclaimed, his mouth agape, his eyes brimming with excitement. These are the spells that Gryffindor wizards should learn. What kind of nonsense is the school teaching? Levitation spells, healing spells, these are just child's play magic. Focus your attention. Wit slapped Seamus hard on the back and warned, if the explosion spell goes wrong, it won't be something that can be solved with just 2 eyebrows and a few hairs. At best, you'll be covered in soot at worst. I'd probably have to bring you apples from the school hospital. Judging from his past performance, Seamus must be very talented at the explosion curse, but no matter how